Hey guys, Steve Moss back with you again on our little video podcast here on WKYT.com alongside Dick Gabriel. And big matchup this weekend in football, Kentucky and Louisville. The Kentucky Wildcats basketball, number one ranked team in the country,
Again.
takes the floor Tuesday night. But first I want to ask you about EKU.
Yeah.
Major changes going on at the athletic department over in Richmond. What was your initial thoughts when you heard that football coach Dean Hood had been dismissed?
Well, I felt bad for Dean. I really like him. I think he's a really good football coach. Was an outstanding coordinator, obviously, at the D1 level. And I really thought he would be the guy to take EKU back. Maybe not to where Roy Kidd had it, because that's almost impossible in these days. But to become more relevant. And I think he did that to a point. He just couldn't push it, to that OVC championship status more than once or twice. So disappointed for him. He'll land on his feet. He's an outstanding coach and a lot of good guys on his staff. We know Dane Dameron really well. But this is an interesting time to be sure at EKU.
And I was going to ask you if Eastern is not making the move to FBS, is Dean Hood still around?
I don't know. I think that Steve Lockmuller is really trying to drag
Athletic
that.
director at Eastern.
Yeah, trying to drag EKU to a different spot. So it's kind of a cart before the horse kind of thing, But I don't think that's, obviously we all know this. That's not what kept EKU from being accepted into the Sun Belt. That was a facilities situation, but we all know football drives the bus, and if your football program is much more successful, it's going to be a little bit easier, I would think, to raise funds.
Dean Hood, a good man and a good defensive coordinator, he'll land on his feet somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, he's the guy who coordinated that Wake Forest defense when Wake went to the Orange Bowl, which is like Vandy going to the Orange Bowl, with all due respect. So, no, he knows what he's doing.
A big football matchup this weekend, Kentucky-Louisville. We'll get to that in just a second, but the men's
Keep
basketball.
teasing us with that.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yes.
The basketball team ranked number one again under John Calipari. When you watched the Duke game, what were your initial thoughts?
Fun. This team's really fun to watch, and I've had people call my radio show and say that. I've seen it on social media. Sitting around playing cards the other night. These guys already, these fans already like this team the way they play a little bit more, but that's understandable. Last year's team was about wearing you down, playing defense, protecting the rim, and scoring enough points, and could bust out and score on a lot of teams, but had trouble scoring on others. This team may be deficient, comparatively speaking, on defense right now. It'll be good and much, much better defensively by the end of the year. But because they're good shooters and because they can get out on the break, and I think part of it too was the Harrisons struggled at times last year, especially early and late, quite frankly. That made it tough sometimes for this team to watch. But Tyler Eulis is worth the price of admission. That alone, I think, sets this team apart. And obviously he played last year, but he sat more than he played last year, or it seemed that way. So, I was so impressed with how they took that initial punch in the mouth from Duke, which is what Duke likes to do. They come out and overwhelm you and then dare you to try to play with them. Well, Kentucky took it and then really wore them down, punched them in the mouth. And it was impressive. For this point in the season, very impressive.
I thought Tyler Eulis was in total control of the game.
Yeah.
Brian Milam and I were in Chicago for that game, and it was just very impressive to watch. As Mike Krzyzewski said after the game, his expression didn't change. We're talking about Eulis.
Yeah.
Expression never changed. He was in total control, and I just thought that he was magnificent in so many facets of running that team.
He plays with so much confidence, and he played that way last year. And there were very few times last year that I thought he played like a freshman. And to have that experience, and what's even more interesting was the comments you guys brought back from him, talking about needing to help the younger guys. And I'm thinking, how old are you, son? He's got 1 year under his belt, but in this day and age, that's an enormous advantage. So, assuming he stays healthy all year, he is going to have a big season. And John Hood was on my radio show right before the Duke game.
Big Blue Insider.
Thank you very much. He said Tyler Eulis is the best player in America. Not the best point guard, not the best player in the SEC. I made him say it again. Best player in America. And that's knowing that Ben Simmons is right down there in Baton Rouge. But, man, you look at the way that he almost manipulates a game. He makes a good point.
It's Kentucky and Boston U, 9 o'clock tip. The Terriers hopefully won't take a bite out of the Cats. 9 o'clock on the SEC network. You can see highlights here on WKYT.com and on the TV side of things. Now, the big football game. Same script as last year.
Yeah.
Kentucky needs to beat Louisville to get to a bowl game to become bowl eligible. Last year it didn't go so well. I know they're hoping that things are different. They do have the home field advantage.
It's the same script with a couple of caveats. It's in Commonwealth, so this is the first time Kentucky will play Louisville for the right to go to a bowl game at home. But the other thing is this is set against the backdrop of last year. You know, we all remember what happened last year with that slide into a losing record, and it could happen again this year.
Right.
But what's interesting is few people are giving Kentucky, I won't say few, but it seems like not a lot of people are giving Kentucky much of a chance in this game. But when you ask them, is Louisville as good as it was last year? Well, no. The answer is no. Is Kentucky better than last year? Most people will say yes. And then Kentucky,
even though their record doesn't necessarily reflect.
Correct. Kentucky last year is within a dropped interception or a call. It was a good call on Zadarius when he put hands to the face on a sack that may have clinched the game, forced a punt, that kind of stuff for Kentucky. And yet Louisville's going to be favored, and like I said, a lot of people have already written off Kentucky's chances. So it's interesting going in, but the wild card's Drew Barker.
Right.
There's just no question. How many teams change quarterbacks with 2 games to go in the season?
And last week, Mark Stoops didn't ask Drew Barker to go out and win the game for him.
Didn't have
All
to.
he had to do was turn around and hand it off to that four-headed
Yeah,
running attack.
don't lose the game.
Right. This week, a little different scenario.
Yeah, no question. And Bobby Petrino and his staff, no doubt, were in the office at 5 o'clock Sunday morning, drawing up an interesting defensive game plan, disguising coverages and coming with blitz packages. And they will put a lot of pressure on Barker. In this game, it's such a cliche to say it's going to be a little won or lost in the trenches. Duh, every game is won and lost there. But truly, it will come down. Can Kentucky's O-line give him any time to throw without having to call upon a tight end or two, an H-back, a tailback? You know, do you have to keep people into chip and then go, or can you send them? You know, it's going to be interesting to see if Kentucky plays a more conservative game plan and goes with that four-headed running attack. Probably only 2 for the most part, 2 or 3. Yeah. If King gets in to run the ball, that's a good sign.
It is.
But you know, are they going to need Drew Barker to try to win this thing with his arm as well as hand it off? So it's going to be a lot of fun.
A lot of storylines. Kentucky and Louisville kick it off at noon.
Weather should be a little better.
Should be a little better. Which means Kentucky fans should probably make it out to this one.
You would think.
If you don't, shame on you, because it's a cliche, huge game for the Cats.
It is. What else you got to do?
And it's senior day.
Yeah, you got plenty of time to shop after the game.
That's right, and it's senior day.
It is.
So remember, you can see all your highlights on WKYT on the TV side and as well here on WKYT.com.
And listen to the game on the radio.
There you go. And don't forget your show, The Big Blue Insider, on 6:30 WLAP.
Monday through Friday, 6 p.m.
Be there. So thanks again. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the games.